Okay, yeah, sure, we'll record now.
Yeah, here we go.
Alright, there's something wrong with a little raw.
Right off the cuff. Get right into
100%, yeah. Some raw audio. Why cut that?
Yeah,
my
really.
philosophy is why cut it?
Hey, you and I have opened a podcast before singing Amazing Grace. I mean,
we have.
We did.
Tremendously, by the way. I heard that like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, we stayed in rhythm. It sounded great.
So, yeah, we harmonized. It was beautiful.
We're back. I'm Peck.
I'm Petrie.
And today we're going to be getting into a couple of different topics. Mainly what we're going to be focusing on is the debate about NXT. I see it as more of a way to hoard prospects and hurt the other promotions, and Brandon sees it as more of a true developmental territory, essentially.
You don't know my life!
But we just talked about this.
I know, and you're essentially right. So I don't
All right.
I mean, the panic in your voice was kind of funny.
Well, it's plausible deniability. It's acting. I have to pretend to be afraid.
Okay, that's right, yeah.
I use the same submissive tone with my cat. But before we get into that, I actually didn't get a chance to participate in the Dusty podcast because I had to work, but
okay.
Just really quick, just wanted to say that may he rest in peace, legend in the ring. Really going to miss him, and honestly, the way that I came by getting to know Dusty was a little bit different. I had come along to wrestling much later, and being my age, I'm 26, I had only gotten to see Dusty in more of a backstage segment. I obviously knew about his history as a former world champion and everything whenever they would discuss his matches with Flair and Race and everything. But my exposure with him in the ring, I believe I watched him face JBL in a bull rope match and some of his work in TNA.
Okay.
And it was more through his sons that I got to know a little bit about his legacy, and it's really a horrible loss for the wrestling world, and really it's going to be interesting now to see what they do with Cody Rhodes and if they kind of table the Stardust character and whether we're finally going to be done with that and whether he gets a push out of it.
I think so too. There might be something to like snap him out of it. I don't know, storyline wise, that could be.
I think so. I think honestly, what they would do, I think the best thing to do would just have them. If I were them, I wouldn't even really address it. I would just kind of have him step away for a while, take a few weeks off, and then just emerge again as Cody Rhodes and really make an impassioned, off the cuff promo talking about how this is the real him. And to honor his father's legacy, he's going to wrestle under the Rhodes name instead of being Stardust. I think that would be effective. And then have him, where he would fit in, I'm really not sure. I don't think he would see something where he would be hotshotted into the main event picture.
Well, him against Orton.
Possibly, yeah, that would be interesting. But to do that, you'd have to turn Orton heel again.
Is he face?
Orton? Yeah.
What is Orton?
I don't know. He gets booed a lot, but I think that's just because people are so tired of him. But he is technically a face right now. He's feuding with Sheamus as a heel. But it'll be interesting. I think we could see him get back into that IC title picture, which in my opinion, I don't think he should have fallen out of in the first place.
I do have an addendum to what I have to say about Dusty Rhodes, and it's not about the last podcast we did. I think this goes all the way back to Macho Man. Dusty Rhodes had a quote saying that Macho Man was a very special talent that a lot of people connected with, like him, Andre, Ric Flair, and himself. Now I took that. Now I'm thinking about it. Was Dusty Rhodes was obviously never as big as Hulk Hogan or Andre the Giant. I went out on the street and I asked people, "Do you know who Hulk Hogan is?
Yeah.
Do you know who Macho Man is? Do you know who Andre the Giant is? Do you know who Ric Flair is? Now, do you know who
Dusty Rhodes is?
A lot of people blanked. They did not know who Dusty Rhodes was. And I kind of took that to be like, oh, people didn't really know who Dusty Rhodes were.
Now, what was the age, though? What were the ages of the people you're asking?
I mean, older
people didn't know who Dusty Rhodes was. See, that's a shock to me.
But they also weren't wrestling fans.
Oh, okay. So he didn't have that. He didn't have that.
Macho Man transcended into pop culture.
Because of Slim Jims. Andre because of the film. Hulk Hogan because of the film and everything else.
Yeah.
So really all the people that had other exposure other than
Ric Flair for being Ric Flair.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, a lot of people up here didn't know Dusty Rhodes, but I imagine like down south, like people knew.
He would be a lot bigger in Texas and Florida and everywhere down there.
So I think I want to apologize for saying that, for not giving Dusty his proper due. Because he deserves it.
Yeah, absolutely.
He deserves it.
He brought such a fire and everything to his promos that really we hadn't seen for a while, and with him it seemed genuine. A lot of wrestlers, you can tell that it's so forced and such an act and such a projection, but with Dusty it really seemed to be him talking about wanting to be the best and being very proud of his own accomplishments, and understandably so.
Woo, baby!
But that's
the
pretty
dream.
much That was him.
That's the dream.
It's a shame to lose another one. I mean, 69, not young, but in the scheme of things.
Yeah, not old.
To go the way that he went, without suddenly like that, it's a shame.
Yes. But let's talk about his little project, his little baby.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of the guys he was tutoring were in NXT.
Right.
So let's go ahead and start talking about NXT. I think it is the perfect developmental system for what they need.
But is it? Because the type of guys that they're preparing run completely counter to the style in WWE, to the look in WWE, and in some cases that can be a benefit.
Right.
I agree with that. But is it trying to be too different, and are they preparing them correctly? In my opinion, they're not, because watching NXT TakeOver, watching the amount of time that they devoted with the camera to the entrances, to the posing, to especially the end-of-match reactions, they're trying to go too big with it, and they're losing a lot of the subtlety. I don't think they're preparing them psychologically to have an in-ring experience. Now, the veteran guys that are in NXT, they don't really have to worry about that, because they've gotten it from other companies. Devitt knows how to have a big match. Samoa Joe knows how to show up. Kevin Owens knows how to make an appearance. But a lot of these other people, even though they've wrestled before in other indie feds, they just appear so green. And the other thing is, in NXT, you're given a lot more freedom in the amount of time you have to call your matches. It's very rare, especially on Raw, for you to have a 10-minute Raw match.
Yeah.
And I don't know that they're going to be able to tailor their style and be able to do a lot of these things, and especially if they're being booked in a lower role, where they're not going to either have as competitive of a long match, or if they're going to be able to go over quite as aggressively as they do in NXT.
I hear what you're saying, and I'm thinking that they're training these guys for maybe the new style of wrestling that they want to go for. They're training them for the new Raw. Because Raw's been pretty much the same ever since it's come out, just with different sets and lighting. The faces are different, but the names are same.
Right.
I think that's the quote I want to go with. I think that they're building up to. Triple H has a process. He has an idea of how they want to train these guys, and how he wants to train them too. Because you got to think, Vince McMahon he has a shelf life now.
Right. No, I
He's
understand
doing
that.
this for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
He has at least maybe 2 or 3 years.
Probably
left.
cap it at, I'd say 7 or 8. I'd say 7 or 8 before he hands it over completely.
Okay.
Due to health or whatever.
Right. So,
or just general retirement. I'd say 7 or 8.
So you think when a lot of these younger guys, where are they going to be in 7 or 8 years?
True.
They might be to low the mid card, but they're still going to be training a lot of the younger guys, though.
Right.
So this is a growing process. It's a learning process. This is the kind of stuff that we expected from TNA. I'm sure the Power Plant would have been doing something like this in WCW. So I think that this is a great developmental system because it is developing their own talent.
But for me, I think you touched on it a little bit by talking about how you'd mentioned the new WWE, and I think you're onto something, but I think what you're, to me, the way that I'm interpreting that is, you know how a lot of different sports, how the NBA and the NHL, the players have gotten smaller. They've gotten a lot quicker.
Yeah.
I think NXT is sort of developing wrestlers for that, and I think they're on the right track because we've seen wrestlers get smaller and smaller and get booked higher and higher on the card. We've had Bryan as world champion. We've had Rey Mysterio as world champion. We've had Shawn Michaels. We've had CM Punk. We've had a lot of these guys winning the heavyweight title.
Yeah.
But I still think that the way that you look at Raw, how it's constituted, when these guys get called up from the minor leagues, it still looks like if you're taking a guy fresh out of college that was a bigger athlete in college, but you're putting him in there against somebody in the pros, and the size difference is still so pronounced and the style is still so different that I don't think NXT is really going to have that much of a true impact until some of these other guys either retire or get bumped off the card completely, because I believe you and I were texting about this and we mentioned 3 specific guys that it's really time to move on from because there's no point in having them successfully win feuds or occupy spaces in the card. And we mentioned Kane,
yes,
Mark Henry, and The Big Show. Less so, in my opinion, Kane, because I think you can still reinvent him, but The more you keep him in this current gimmick, you're watering him down so much that it doesn't have any more appeal.
He's the oldest tenured wrestler in WWE.
And I think they need to give him some kind of sendoff.
He's been reinvented and reinvented and reinvented. You know what? I think, within a year or two, I think it's about time to just actually give him
a sendoff
he deserves.
Give him one more run, have him put his retirement on the line.
Maybe even Big Show. Maybe give him like a retirement run like that.
Because
maybe do like an Eddie Dean leaving ECW sort of thing.
That because the Big Show is still too much of a physical force that you could just job him out that easily. You can't have Big Show become the next Khali. It wouldn't work.
No.
And the same with Mark Henry. It's like you need to kind of either put him in a tag team or whatnot. But guys like that are serving to really block the newer, younger, smaller guys because A, they're taking up low to high mid card roster spots. And they're wrestling a style completely counter to what a lot of the other guys is. There's a big difference from going to wrestling Ryback to going to wrestling someone on the size of the Big Show.
That's true. But you also got to think about what can Big Show and Kane, what can they bring to the new big men? But
that's the thing. We're so bereft of that. Except for, you look at Kevin Owens, and they're billing him as a heavyweight, and John Cena by no means is a giant and looks completely enormous compared to him. We're really, really going on a scale where it's still, I would say, within the realm of believability, but for the casual fan, I don't think that it's going to be there. I don't think that they're going to see him as quite the threat, and he's really having to work more with his promos and everything else just to get that sense of, I belong here. Okay. In terms of his look and everything else.
So he's going to have to work for it. It's not going to come naturally.
He is, but if you throw him up on the main roster this fast and everything, you risk burning him out.
Yeah, but still at the same time, he's kind of used to that schedule. He's used to that workload.
Well, no, not even that. I'm talking about not having the time to adequately develop and throwing him into a situation where he might flub.
Okay. But he might flub, but then again, he might not. I'm gonna relate this to what I know. I'm gonna relate this to baseball. That there's a baseball organization in Korea called the KBO.
Right.
The Pirates got a guy from that organization.
Okay.
Yeah, they thought that the KBO was the equivalent of high double A
or double A.
High double A, and he is doing phenomenal. I mean, and there's a lot of questions in April whether or not he was going to do it. It's June, and those questions are answered. He deserves to be in the major leagues.
The problem with this, though, is comparing those two analogies is that professional baseball, they don't care about how you look. They don't care about how you connect with an audience. They care about how you play ball. WWE is so image conscious, especially with the two people in charge, Vince McMahon and Triple H, that I worry about that. And they tend to second guess themselves, and I'm just worried that based on this track record, I'm going to name these guys that once were either world champions or on track to be pushed for something a lot higher. And a couple of months later, we look at where they are now. Jack Swagger.
Oh.
Alberto Del Rio, no longer with the company. The Miz. Dolph Ziggler. Ryback. Bray Wyatt. You're looking at a lot of these guys that were either former world champions or on track to become that. R-Truth, in some cases, received a world title match. I'm talking about guys that have received either a number one contenders match or had the belt or been on track to do that. And you can even make this argument, Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
After WrestleMania, you look at him after that, he feuded with Big Show, and now he's feuding with recycled down the card Bray Wyatt. Where are these people going? Kane in recent years. You look at a lot of these guys, and I just worry that Sheamus is now starting to get some respectability back. But again, do we really view Sheamus as... Does it even make sense that he won Money in the Bank?
It does not make any sense.
Exactly. Because we've seen him get so de-pushed and so booked down the card, and my big thing with it is, when this starts happening to guys from NXT, they don't have that pedigree of having won the world title or anything. So if this happens to them early in their career, I worry that it could bump them back further than I think a lot of the fans are going to be used to, and I think that they're going to end up being left behind.
Is Sheamus, I'll bring this up, is he going the Batista route in last year's Rumble to WrestleMania in terms of he has a movie coming out? Sheamus is playing Rocksteady.
Right, in the Ninja Turtles movie.
Yeah. So is that what they're doing? Or are they going to? It seems like for the first time in wrestling, there's finally things are finally going in waves as if things are going around and around.
But the thing with
Sheamus
that is
going up after being down for so long. Orton's on the decline. He might come back up.
But the thing with that is, though, when there's so many stigma associated with you, because we don't forget about your past experiences, we don't forget about your past performances, we don't forget about how far you've been knocked down the card and how much of a shine it's really knocked off of you. We look at some of these guys now and we think, oh no, The Miz. We have that instinctive gut reaction to not again. I don't ever want to see him up there again because we saw how badly it ended. That's the thing with it, is when you push these guys back up, they're diminished. They're less than they were. And I'm afraid that that's going to happen to a lot of these guys. Some of them have legitimate talent from NXT.
Yeah.
Even though I don't like the product itself from NXT as a whole, I think, honestly, the best guys from NXT are the guys already on the roster. I don't mind Neville. I like Rollins. Ambrose has some potential. Roman Reigns I'm not sold on. But, and the Wyatts, I think that they all have uses. And I think they've all been misused. But, I think that those guys are solid. But I just wonder, how far is too far that you can come back from?
Well, they've had Miz doing junky gimmicks
for years, and he's not even in shape. Have you seen him lately? He looks terrible.
He's not in shape at all. But I think, Reigns at the 2014 Rumble, his stock was pretty high because he was in the same ring with Sheamus and Batista. I remember watching that, thinking, holy crap, I'm a Roman Reigns fan.
Not necessarily, but see that you're making my point for me because you're explaining to me how far Sheamus and Batista have fallen. Batista was only a part-timer at that point, and Sheamus didn't deserve to be there.
But Reigns' stock is going. It went up
by default because of them going down.
Okay, and then it went down a little bit. So still talking about Reigns.
But if the Rumble ends with The Rock coming out to raise your hand and attempt to get you over, and they still boo and they're not sold on your push because they want Daniel Bryan or someone else, you have a problem. And you really needed to be...
His performance at WrestleMania 31, I think, completely changed that. He had people...
He got clubbed like a baby seal by Brock Lesnar, and not a goddamn person wanted him to win that match. They wanted Lesnar to sacrifice him like a lion eating a Christian, and they did not care. They didn't want that match to end any other way except Lesnar winning or Rollins cashing in. Don't give me that. They were happy, and they loved it. There was not one single person that said, I want Roman Reigns to hit a Superman punch and a spear and win this. Bullshit.
I wanted a good match.
No, you don't. You like watching...
No, bullshit. That was WrestleMania 31.
And did you get a good match? No, you didn't. You got beating the holy high hell.
It was a great match. You know why? Because again, it had ebb and flow to it. It was all Lesnar.
It had nothing until Seth Rollins came out and saved the day.
Lesnar this, Lesnar that. Oh yeah.
You had everyone looking at their watch, waiting for the horrible dubstep, bass guitar, bullshit theme of Seth Rollins to hit, and finally take us home. That's all that you wanted to happen. That's all that Lesnar happened. You didn't want Roman Reigns to win that match.
I wanted a good match.
And you knew when you saw who won the Rumble, we weren't getting one.
Everyone would have been upset. Everyone would have been upset.
They would have, and I wouldn't have been mad
and people were watching next night on Raw, waiting for again, Reigns to be clobbered. Because Lesnar would have come back out and then beat the tar out of him again.
Maybe.
Building up to the next pay-per-view.
Even still, I don't know.
I think we woke someone up. Sorry, Mr. Schultz.
No, it's okay. No, I'm happy to go get John.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Hey, Brandon, there's pizza in here.
Okay, thank you.
But anyway, back to NXT. So talking about some of the guys that have been called up. The biggest thing that I have with NXT is it's not even a talent evaluation whether these guys are ready or not. It's the problem of how many people you have on the roster ahead of them entrenched in their roster spots, because you either have to push them further up the card, you have to push them back down, or in my opinion, what would be most beneficial to a lot of these guys would be to give them their release and let them go. You're either going to have to give the NXT guys their release and just explain, I'm sorry, we don't see anything in the card for you. We can't, we can call you up to the main roster, but you're going to be Adam Rose. You're going to be Heath Slater. We're not going to have anything for you. Or you need to look at some of these mid-card guys and just be like, look, I'm sorry, Mr. Ziggler. This isn't going to happen. We've given you a world title. You try. God knows that you try. But, gotta go.
Okay.
You gotta sign somewhere else because we gotta give Adrian Neville your spot. We gotta give this guy your spot. Kevin Owens is coming up. Cesaro. Any chance you had of ever getting pushed is over.
Cesaro staying.
Staying, yes.
Yeah.
Used in a role that we know that he's capable of from what we've seen before, no. Jack Swagger. Sorry. You're almost never on Raw. This is why. See this guy coming up from NXT? You might lose to him a couple times. After that, we're not going to see you for a couple months. That's my problem with it, is you have all these guys that you put stock in by giving them either mid-card titles, tag team titles, world titles in some cases. What do you do with them? Are you going to overthrow them completely and just keep them on the roster and pay them more and throw them off in favor of the NXT guy? Or what are you going to do? That's the problem with NXT. You're trying to pour so many things through this filter into another bottle from another bottle. And eventually it's going to fill up so fast. There's only so many spots where the liquid can go. What do? That's the problem with NXT. And then you have not only that, you have all the part-timers coming back that you're throwing immediately into a main event spot and pushing out everyone else that's already in there, let alone the people trying to come up.
As opposed to the problem they had a few years ago, they had John Cena, Triple H, and I don't know who else.
Well, they had Orton. They had what year are you talking about specifically?
Oh God, trying to think of a year. I think it was like before. This was like before Ryder. This is before Ziggler. I want to say this is
2008.
Around that time.
Well,
they had like no one.
Well, you still had Edge though. You still had Cena. You still had Jericho. You still had Triple H. You still had that was pre-Wade Barrett, right? Wade Barrett was what, 2010?
Yes.
Okay, but I mean, you still had
you had like 6 or 7 guys, 8 guys, maybe 10 to carry on the show.
But they were enough.
Enough, or like
now you have one world title.
You had all these like main event guys. You know, you needed to like even things out.
Well, right, but now you have so many people even just competing for the mid-card spots, and there's not enough openings. And now you only have one world title. You don't have the SmackDown developmental world title to give people anymore.
No,
and I'm sorry, but that's
the NXT title.
That title means absolutely nothing, and it should be kept to the developmental organization. I watched Raw, and Dolph Ziggler attempted to challenge that. I'm like, you're trying to bury yourself at this point. You take that, and you just demoted yourself to NXT. You wanted to win the NXT title. Are things that bad that they're not using you that you want to go retreat to the minor leagues?
It's all cyclical. It's all like waves.
It's not cyclical if there's no one retiring and you're just going around and around and around the wave pool.
But there's up and down. Dolph Ziggler is the NXT champion. Even though he went back down, he still has a chance to come back up.
He's not, but he didn't get it. The match wasn't for that, and he lost to Kevin Owens anyway.
Okay. But the point is, there's room for these guys to go down, and there's room for these guys to come up.
There's only room for
switch.
But that's the thing, though. The guys that you push down, you're not going to be able to bring back up because they've been jobbed out so thoroughly from what we've seen them do. The only exception is Ryback might be able to salvage himself in the IC title picture, but a lot of these other guys...
Would you want Ryback? Would you want The Miz? No. I wouldn't mind Reigns, though.
Where? The world title?
Eventually.
No, I don't want him anywhere.
I don't know about that. I don't think you even.
The guy needs to learn to wrestle.
He needs to learn how to talk too.
So he's basically useless. But the other thing is that
he came up and he came back down. He came up and he came back down.
Look at how
they're gonna do it. They're gonna do it again with him.
But look at how immediately these guys get thrown over for. Look at how guys like Cena even get pushed to the edge when someone like Lesnar comes back. Did you see on Raw this week?
Actually, I don't.
They announced the whole show was predicated upon trying to pick Seth Rollins' opponent for the next pay-per-view, and they had all these people come out, and Kane wrestled, and Orton wrestled, and Ambrose wrestled, and it was all like their showcase, and at the end of the show, Triple H said, I'm going to pick your opponent for Battleground. Guess who he picked?
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Guess who came back?
Lesnar.
Exactly. Yeah. Any groundswell of enthusiasm that there was for Seth Rollins died on the vine the instant that music hit, and absolutely no one in that arena gave a shit about Seth Rollins' title reign anymore. They wanted Lesnar to get the belt back, and they wanted it to end.
Brock went down.
Brock didn't even go down. Brock exited stage left for a couple of months. Brock took a vacation. Brock came back. the rightful person, the real
then,
main eventer that people wanted to see.
Now the roles are reversed.
Rollins is going to get bashed down the card until he's feuding with Triple H at SummerSlam, and then it's going to take God knows how long until someone else beats Lesnar.
What happens if
he wants another vacation?
If the same thing at Battleground happened at Mania? Did I say that right? What happened? The same thing that happened at Mania happens at Battleground.
Well, you're going to have to put Roman Reigns into the match then, because Seth Rollins is not beating Brock Lesnar straight up.
Okay. Maybe it's the same thing. Maybe it'll be quicker.
So you're
Lesnar, little bit of Rollins, back to Lesnar. Sheamus comes out.
The fact that you even mentioned Sheamus winning the world title
He has Money in the Bank.
I
know you don't like Money in the Bank, but they have it for a purpose.
I know, but that's possibly worse than Rollins winning. Oh God, Lesnar retaining and Sheamus becoming. Oh no! Oh God, Sheamus with the world title.
You're taking this way too seriously.
I'm sorry, you mentioned Sheamus winning a world title after he got beat by fucking Adrian Neville and all these fucking idiots. It's not gonna happen.
He has the briefcase.
I understand that, but it's so bad. You lost.
Is it?
You overthrew Seth Rollins' world title. You didn't even give the belt back to Lesnar, and you gave it to Sheamus.
Because Lesnar can still come back. He's not, dead.
I understand that, but you just gave up on a Seth Rollins title reign to give the belt to Sheamus.
Then you throw Sheamus back into the picture, and then you have an interesting thing.
What happens in 6 months when Sheamus loses the world title and gets pushed back down the card again until he's feuding with Orton again, and then feuding for the IC title
again? Then another 6 months, he can come back up if he's feeling.
Why do you want to see that? You don't.
Yeah, okay, but it's all waves, man. That's what I'm talking about.
I don't like that.
That's why you have the mid-card talent, so they can come up.
You can stay.
That's why you have.
But if the mid-card talent, if the talent below the main eventers is that far behind, or has been recycled that many times, you don't want to see it again.
Okay.
There was a time when I thought Wade Barrett should have been the world champion. I don't believe that anymore.
The top guys have to come back down so they can work themselves back up again.
I understand that, but they can't get knocked down that far onto the card that they're getting jobbed out, essentially. When you read the results...
But they still have to start from somewhere.
I understand that, but it's just not good. And you're just adding more and more ingredients and stirring it around to the point that it really waters down the product.
I think you have to throw everything up against the wall. Create some weird scenario, someone gets hurt. That's the thing. But they're not even accounting for injury.
But these guys can't book in a vacuum. You know that. They're trying to push every single person. They're trying to pull people back and push people ahead. And they're trying to do this. It's kind of like playing chess. And instead of trying to move one piece at a time, you're trying to move both rows and your opponents. And trying to figure out something that appeals to the fans. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. A lot of mistakes. To the detriment of your own company without having a plan.
Okay.
That's my biggest problem with the whole NXT roster call-ups is that the amount of things that they get right is going to pale in comparison to the amount of really good people and star power that get screwed over by this. That's my problem with it.
Okay. But still, even if they get 3 or 4 guys out of it, it's still worth it. It's still worth it to do.
It is, but what have you sacrificed for those 3 or 4 guys? How many former world champions or possible world champions have you sacrificed in order to push these guys up the card? Because
what do you mean by possible world champions? Because by them bringing these guys up, they're saying, yeah, we believe in these guys, so they have a potential to go someplace in the future.
But don't forget, too, the NXT guys, they're not essentially always getting pushed up the card. They might become Adam Rose. And do we want to see that? If you grew up and you got attached to this guy from NXT, and he's good, and you see that happen to...
Almost saw it with Mick Foley.
I disagree, because Mick Foley with the Mankind gimmick was being booked strongly. It was only until 98 that we really saw him kind of giving it, it was kind of either give him the world title or let him go. It was kind of, that was the whole defining moment. But he was still doing well enough that he was able to tread water and stay in that high mid-card titleless spot where he could be and challenge for the belt.
You know what? Honestly, it was 50-50. It could have went either way.
No, it did go that way at the end of his career because they didn't let him win any matches. And Mick Foley became known as only as the guy that could take a lot of punishment but never win anything. That was my big problem with Foley. But with these guys this young in their career and everything, I'm just concerned that because there's a lack of available opportunity, because NXT signs every top prospect they want from indie feds. The indie feds, now, don't get me wrong, they're not trying to compete with WWE. It's not in their interest to. They're an alternative, but they're not a direct competitor. So, I understand that. They're not trying to hold on to these guys. They're not trying to sign new stars and everything. They're not trying, PWX or PWG is not trying to be WWE. They're trying to make their money in their own little niche and stay behind, play catch up with ROH and stuff.
Yeah.
Or operate in their own little vacuum, work with ROH and all these other guys. However, companies that have those aspirations to move up, to become the next TNA, or TNA to ever get back on their feet, which is a disaster topic for a whole nother show. I don't have any heartburn pills, so I don't want to get into that now.
Kind of funny how they're bringing up EC3
a year too late. But anyway, but speaking of that, EC3 is the only defection that they've had. Really, think about all the companies that you've watched, aside from Dalton Castle, who is comic relief in Ring of Honor, not going to ever win the world title.
Yeah.
Really funny guy, though, as much as his gimmick is quite odd. If EC3 is the only prospect that you've ever lost, that goes to the number 2 promotion that's failing horribly and floundering, he's only now winning the world title, and only now getting the respect he deserves, you'll take that. Because look at everyone that you signed away from there. You took Samoa Joe, one of their former top guys. You've taken every single free agent that they wanted to sign that's under 40. Like, you look at, they got Prince Devitt, they got a lot of these guys. So you're not losing anything. You have all this talent, and you have nothing to lose. And I know that you disagree, and you talk about it as just being pure developmental. But to me, you're really just creating a built-in advantage because you have the money, and you're just not allowing these guys to play anywhere else.
Yeah, and really, yeah, that's true. That they're using the MGM model.
Basically,
still.
Because they can still have this entire stable of talent. Then when anybody gets hurt, they can move these guys up the card, and they can create, such a culture of competition, and then give them the illusion that they'll be bigger if they get exposure. Assuming they can even get onto the NXT card, because they have so many people signed to developmental that aren't even wrestling on the show and live events because of all the people that they have. So that's the thing with it. Veterans are going to be leaving, and you're getting talent from everywhere. You're scooping up valuable veterans that people can use, like Rhino, for a few, shows or whatnot. You're really in such a position of power that it's going to strangle the competition in wrestling, and you're not going to see big free agent signings. You're not going to see other companies other than New Japan be able to develop young talent from other promotions. Internationally, they've basically walled off the Pacific and the Atlantic in terms of keeping prospects, other than a few people that escaped to Japan. There's not ever going to be another promotion in the United States that's going to be able to get big enough and ever compete with them again.
Man, I don't know about that. I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that they're.
They're a monopoly, though.
Yeah, they are a monopoly. That's 100%. I think that's a fact. That is a fact that they are a monopoly. But you know what?
But when the two people we've seen on the horizon...
The Indies can still develop their own talent.
But the Indies...
The ROH has... Don't they have something?
Yeah, ROH. But ROH is basically, and they've admitted as much, essentially, with everything that they're allowed to reference, talking about... For ROH, they get more press mentioning the guys that used to wrestle for them that star in WWE. They're proud of the fact that Daniel Bryan and Seth Rollins and all of these guys got to wrestle in WWE. They allow people to wear their CM Punk t-shirts to ROH. They basically admit that they are a feeder system to Stardom and that they're there to provide a different type of wrestling. ROH has no interest in being a WWE competitor because they're in the wrestling business, not the entertainment business. And that is why they will never be as big. TNA has shown the interest, not the ability. And Global Force, which we've talked about, I don't feel that what they presented themselves as is what they're going to be. I don't feel that they're ever going to get to that level. I don't feel that they're ever going to have their own stars, not people they borrow from New Japan and other promotions. So what I'm saying is I don't see anywhere on the horizon, if you have the ability to sign all of these prospects and keep them in perpetuity, basically,
man,
ever develop a promotion.
I really don't know about GFW, because you have a lot of people coming over from... They have a lot of the European, a lot of the British companies.
But again... Over. You're trying to sell that to an American audience. I understand that you're a global force company, but compared to Hollywood deals that WWE has and everything else, what you're starting with and being a professional wrestling organization, WWE has that built-in advantage by being an entertainment company. As much as I hate it and as much as it's destroyed a product that I used to love, I don't feel that we're ever going to see an abundance of talent like we used to see. Even you look at the TNA roster, and there were a lot of guys that we would have taken over a lot of the WWE guys, when they were younger and in their prime. We liked Bobby Roode. We liked James Storm. We liked a lot of those people. These up-and-coming stars aren't ever going to get to that level that are going to get that exposure because unless they go to New Japan or somewhere else.
The talent's always going to be there.
Talent's
always going to be there.
Talent combined with the look, combined with star power. You have wrestling ability. Look at Doug Williams. Doug Williams is never going to be as big as The Rock, but the man had absolutely incredible wrestling talent. That's what I'm saying. The indies or whatever other fed, they might have guys that sell their ass off, but we're going to have such a paucity of stars that I have a problem with.
I really don't think so.
You're going to get one every once in a blue moon that's going to defect like EC3, but you're never going to get enough consistent prospects to develop into stars away from WWE. Unless you get someone with money like Ted Turner to go up against them and develop something like WCW. And I don't see anybody with the appetite to do that based on how much the cable companies are unwilling to put behind wrestling. Look at, yes, Destination America doubled down on Ring of Honor, but I think eventually they'll come to regret that decision too, putting that much money into wrestling. As depressing of a thought as it is.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to think, like, what's the point you're trying to make? I'm sorry.
The point that I'm trying to make is I don't see, getting back to my whole argument about WWE basically doing this to hurt and prevent competition. They've won.
Yeah. Okay, because they have created their own ROH.
Yeah.
That's essentially what they've done. They created their own
And they've inhibited
ROH.
the opportunity for there to even be anything like another TNA.
Because you still have...
You're going to run out.
You still have a lot of the heroes. You still have a lot of the Cabanas. You have a lot of the Comptons.
Would you build a company around any of these guys, though?
Compton and Cabana, yes.
To the casual fan, when TNA started out, though, they had guys like Sabu, they had Jarrett, they had Kevin Nash. To do that, you would have to have Hero and all these other guys, but you'd have to supplement them with stars that we've seen in other companies like Ziggler, like, a Kurt Angle. You'd have to have the more veteran names, because no one is going to want to start a company with people that don't have as much of an image except for the most hardcore fans. The names that you're saying, if you didn't follow Ring of Honor, I'm sorry, but you have no idea who they are.
What about Lucha Underground? They could win an Emmy.
They could, but Lucha Underground is again appealing to a different type of wrestling fan. They're looking for more of the light heavyweight, the luchadors, the Hispanic star powers. They're not going to have as broad-reaching of an appeal.
And they're doing that with at least one mid-card WWE guy.
Exactly, but the chances that they're going to get a whole lot more? No. They have Del Rio, they might get Mysterio, they might get a few of these other guys. But to ever get to the level that it would be, where it would compare to, again, just using him an example because of his age and his exposure level, and the fact that he was a world champion, to even get to the level of a Ziggler, that's the problem.
Okay, does it really have to compare to WWE though all the time?
It does if you're going to bill yourself as a competitor.
Do you watch 20th Century Fox movies all the time? Do you watch Universal movies all the time?
No, but what I'm saying is we're going to have indie wrestling in and of itself is an alternative, but it's not a competitor. And I think we're never going to see a competitor because of it. I don't mind it. I'm happy to just turn it off and watch New Japan. I don't care. But it's depressing to think that we won't get to see that kind of quality in wrestling in the style that I like in America.
Yeah,
that's the crux of my entire argument: is that we're not going to see a WCW or a strong TNA type organization.
You're also kind of saying that WWE is going to raid New Japan. That's essentially what you're saying.
No,
too.
Because New Japan has enough of a stronghold; they're far enough away, and they have enough of a financial backing that I think they're a little bit of a different case.
And they could still come over stateside. Didn't they get picked up by someone?
Well, yeah, a small AIX, like a different cable company. But the thing is, you don't try to win a war that way. You don't start a war like that. where you're coming into another country and you're trying to do that. WWE was only able to do that because of sheer size. NXT doing this and being such a monopoly is just going to basically, they're going to be like the Ottoman Empire. They're going to be huge, they're going to be lazy, they're not going to be necessarily weak because of the amount of resources that they have, but they're going to be lazy. They're not going to be pushed as hard, to work as hard, to deliver the quality of product. They'll do things now and then to satisfy the more indie-type fans, but they're not going to be pushed. And we're not going to get the quality out of it as a result.
See, I think that the quality is always going to be there. I mean, you might not see it on Monday night.
The quality,
you're going to see it somewhere.
The quality has fallen apart so much in WWE from 2011, when really it started with injuries and retirements and everything else, that I just don't like a lot of the new guys coming up. And I think, I acknowledge the ones that I feel could be stars.
This is all coming from the guy who doesn't like the independents, who openly hates it.
I like it when they have people that are above and beyond, that I feel fit the right combination of talent and the right combination of look. The people that I look at as actual stars, not Daniel Bryan. And especially not early Daniel Bryan.
He got over as hell.
Mistake.
What do you mean mistake? He did that on his own!
I understand that, but I didn't care. And it made me actively disengage, and it turned off a lot of other casual fans that looked at him and said, there's this guy.
Look, Daniel Bryan was incredibly positive. He was new, he was fresh. He had that, I want to say, almost like that brawling moveset, because he did a lot of the kicks. You hate that, but look, he was different. A lot of people took to him. He was like the David Eckstein, smaller guy winning the World Series MVP. So you didn't have like Barry Bonds carrying the torch. So you had some small little
somebody severely limited in terms of who he could work with. Have you ever tried to watch him wrestle bigger guys? They're some of the worst matches I've ever seen. It was a joke.
Because they can't wrestle at him.
But they can, though. There are big guys that can wrestle smaller guys and make it look fine. Plus, the people he was struggling against, Randy Orton's by no means a giant.
Again, we're talking about Randy Orton. Mr. One Note. He
can actually wrestle.
Man, I don't know.
WWE is so sold on doing signature moves.
He can wrestle one style.
Well, no, really, though, WWE, the biggest problem is everybody that they have gets so into the whole signature moves thing that they forget everything else. Really, everyone has 3 highlight moves, and that's the problem. It's even happening with Neville now. He has the Red Arrow, the German Suplex, and the sit-out powerbomb. The suplex thing.
Lesnar has a punch and a throw.
No, Lesnar has lots of different ways to hurt you.
I'll go back and watch that WrestleMania 31 match.
He was working against
F5, German Suplex, and punch.
Yeah, that's Roman Reigns, though. You don't really need to do much against him.
That was still a great match.
Yeah, because I like watching people get hurt by Brock Lesnar. I was entertained.
Oh my god.
There was no sense of drama. You knew he wasn't going to win.
You don't know. You don't know. They took away Taker's streak. They took that away from him.
Don't bring that up. I never want to talk about that again.
All the time. They took that away from him. You don't know. You don't know what's gonna go. You don't know what's gonna happen. Don't be all pouty on me now. But you don't know what's gonna happen. That's why it's fun. You have Triple H coming up. There's a style in wrestling in NXT right now. Yeah, that's not going on in Raw right now. Well, how come they're not doing that on Raw right now? I don't know. But maybe in like a few years, maybe that will be the Raw
style. Some of these guys still have 10 years left on their careers, though. That's the thing. Before they finally move out and move on.
Oh, okay. Maybe they're going to go someplace else.
Where?
Who knows? They could go to GFW. They could go to Japan and compete. ROH is like turning it around. Who knows TNA now?
ROH is never going to be big. They don't want to be big. They want to just do what they do, make their money, and stay as number 2.
They were pretty hot for a while, like 03, 05.
Ring of Honor?
Yeah, they were hot.
That was 12 years ago. And they lost all of their talent. That's all they are, is a supplemental organization.
Why can't they get more talent, though?
Because they can't.
You're saying this talent is like this
they are the
thing.
No, because they
can't make more of.
Ring of Honor is the Orlando Magic of wrestling. They cannot hold their stars. The Orlando Magic lost Penny Hardaway, Tracy McGrady, and Shaquille O'Neal, and Dwight Howard. They had great players. They were there for a couple of years, and then they were gone. No one remembers what they did in a Magic uniform. They remember them everywhere else, and that's the same problem with Ring of Honor.
Okay.
Do you remember CM Punk for being in Ring of Honor, or do you remember him main eventing WrestleMania?
CM Punk signed his WWE contract on the ROH title!
Exactly. So, you can't bill them as a competitor.
But you still remember it, though!
Yeah, you forget about it in a few years when they have the next bumper crop of indie guys that are eventually going to go to WWE in 4 years, and you stop caring because they're not a competitor.
How many WWE fans went back and watched old ECW stuff because they're like, oh, what, you talking about like Steve Austin's on it? Look, only thing I'm saying is talent isn't limitless, but there's way more out there than you think it is.
Around the world, no, I understand that, but if you have the option to take the best of the best, and there's still going to be talent, down there that might be rated a little lower, might need a gimmick change. But even still, if you're not getting that national exposure somewhere else, and you're being signed to a developmental organization, or you're not, and you have to kind of fend for yourself in these other territories, you're basically in the wilderness. And you have to go hone your craft internationally. And I understand the internet is such a huge thing and everything, but your fans are going to be like the guy I ran into at a horror convention the one time that was like, well, you never watched Ladder War 3. No, I haven't. And that's why I've never heard of these people. Because you're telling me about an obscure pay-per-view that I've never heard of. And that's the crux of my problem with it. Is that we're not going to have enough recognizable stars except for the most hardcore of the hardcore of the hardcore of the hardcore indie fans.
Well, names are going to get around. Wrestlers are going to get over. Okay, that's what happens. Okay, they're gonna do something in ring. They're gonna do something out of the ring. They're gonna have like funny shoot interviews, like best friends. Like I really like the best friends with Trent Beretta and Chuck Taylor. You have Cabana's podcast, or just like bringing all these sorts of people in. When CM Punk was on Colt Cabana's podcast for the two-parter, how many who never even knew who Colt Cabana was? Not even like, hey, Colt Cabana, how you're doing?
But do you know of Colt Cabana because it was wrestling? Or you know him because CM Punk was on his podcast?
See, yeah, but you're like, oh wow, this is really interesting. Oh, you go through his episode listing. Oh, Steve Austin was on here. Oh, I want to check that out. They start talking about some other things. Oh, they have that Kevin Steen guy. Wasn't he Kevin Owens? Oh, I want to check that out too. What's this Nigeria thing I keep hearing about? You're gonna be like, anything to bring people in is great. Okay, and there's gonna be. I believe in the talent that not only can you bring people in, but you can get people to stay.
But I'm talking about from the standpoint of if you're a promotion, you're trying to sign guys and you're trying to build from the bottom without recognizable names. Are you going to be able to do it? That's
Chikara,
you can. You absolutely.
Chikara, Lucha Vavoom.
But again, all the things that you're naming are things that we're all wrestling fans here, so we know what that is. But if you tell somebody on the street, they'll be like, oh, is he one of the loser dragons, like Callisto or Sin Cara?
You get that with anything. Like 6 years ago, you start talking about the Stark and Lannisters, people are going to look at you like you're nuts. Was that some reality show? Oh, and there's some blonde woman with dragons.
Wrestling's a lot different, though. It's so hard to get that
Wrestling's
kind of recognition.
very weird to talk to people.
And it's already a niche thing. And then you have... Wrestling is more divided than any other pop culture medium in and of itself. The only difference would be discussing contemporary pop music and indie bands. That's probably the best, closest example of how violent the disconnect is within the subculture of fans. Because there are Ring of Honor people that hate anybody and burn everything the instant somebody goes to WWE and views them as a sellout.
Right.
So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. There's such a difference and a disconnect there.
But you also have some people on their iPods who have, the latest, who have Nicki Minaj, and then they have the last band they heard.
Yeah.
Whose friend gave them a CD down at, Mr. Smalls.
But the other problem with that is, though, are these other promotions trying to develop, are they going to make enough money? Or are they going to get by trading on free stuff? Because they're going to end up, honestly...
the
little guys are hurt.
Over. In this day and age, you can get over.
But the little guys are hurt a lot more by piracy and everything like that. That's the problem.
Okay, right. But you could still get over. You could still get over with social media.
To an extent.
Yeah, to an extent, and then,
but
your product has to come in.
But you're always going to have a core group of customers. You're only going to get over to the group of consumers that buy your product in general, though. You're not going to get anywhere near as big. There's not going to be that crossover appeal because you don't have the connections that WWE has. You're not going to have an opportunity to appear on ESPN and announce that Brock Lesnar is staying in WWE. You're not going to have that with another promotion. Ever. Because the thing is, once these other media companies and Hollywood and everything, once they get loyal to things like WWE, they stay with them. They have relationships with them. Any other company, it's almost impossible for them to betray that trust and work with. That's why TNA, they had Hulk Hogan get on there for Bound for Glory, and he didn't talk about the pay-per-view once.
Okay. But, okay. Oh, but Hogan's nuts, okay?
I understand that.
Hogan, believe it or not, his time has come and it has passed. We might say the same thing about Steve Austin. 30 years from now, 40 years from now, we could even say the same thing about John Cena. Oh, you remember that John Cena guy? Man, didn't he turn out to be some nut job? He turned out weirder than Hogan. I didn't think that was possible. That could be a thing people could be saying. It's true.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, we definitely differ on our views of NXT. We'll see how it goes.
So, yeah, and like, I could be completely wrong. You could be completely wrong.
My thing is, too, like, I just like people that I'm familiar with. I like wrestlers that I was used to seeing in the main card. And I don't want to see... For example, just real quick, just to pick a random example. I like Wade Barrett. I don't want to see Wade Barrett get the push in favor of somebody from NXT that I might not like. That's my big problem with it. That's the whole crux of my argument, basically, is that I don't want to see somebody sacrifice that we know has talent for somebody that might.
I want to see new guys. Because if they're good, they'll stay. If they have a good attitude, they'll stay. Regardless of where they go. Because that company also has to be responsible.
There's a lot
if a company in WWE is low card...
But there's so much dead weight on that roster, and you know it. Do we need Darren Young? No. Keep Titus O'Neil, fire Darren Young right now, avoid the sexual harassment claim or whatever, the whole whatever it would be, the whole discrimination lawsuit, so you have to keep him. But anybody else, forget it. Like, get rid of him. Fandango, goodbye. All these other people that are taking up roster spots, if you're not going to use them, thank God they put the Wyatts back together. Otherwise, Eric Rowan, see ya. They really need to start letting people's contract expire instead of re-signing them and re-signing them and re-signing them in perpetuity when no one wants to see them. Christian's still on the books, for God's sake, and he doesn't even show up.
Okay.
Like, that could be the only way that this whole NXT thing could work, is if you start cutting the dead weight.
Maybe they will. Maybe that's a part of the plan. But then again, we'll see. We'll see.
I just don't have faith. I don't have faith in Triple H. I don't have faith in McMahon. And honestly, I started really hating the company when Triple H took over. That's my whole thing with it.
You gotta believe, man.
All my favorites are retired. I have nothing left to believe in. I learned more Japanese from watching New Japan than anything.
Oh, jeez. Really?
Yeah.
That's a little like... Because Shinsei Nakamura is awesome.
Yeah.
Right.
And Okada.
Yeah,
and Tanahashi.
Oh, that's who I got confused with a couple nights ago. I said, like, Shigeru, Sakurai, Iwata.
Sakurai. Oh, yeah, when you text me the Nintendo thing.
I was like,
they have this hilarious thing on... They had this hilarious thing online. It was a picture of Tanahashi. And it's a little girl holding a sign. She goes, "Oh, it's Yoshitatsu," which is funny because Yoshitatsu wrestles for them now. He's in the same company with them, and they do look quite similar.
Is he still hurt?
Yeah, he's unfortunately. He's recovering, though. He's getting there.
Okay.
He was in really bad shape a couple of months ago.
They said he was
suicidal, yeah. Yoshitatsu, get well, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
We really liked you. It's just a shame they tried to make you talk so much in WWE and just really, really didn't give you a gimmick that worked. I feel bad because you were a good wrestler. See, did they ever let you feud with Lord Tensai?
Guy coming up.
Well, he was, let's be honest, he's
coming up. You have to give him that shot.
36 when you signed him.
Oh, I know, but you still have to give him that shot. See, here's what I like to see. How come they don't have, like, this George Clooney looking guy? You know what I mean? How come they don't have, like, the older wrestler? How come they don't have, like, a McDreamy or something from, like, Grey's Anatomy? How come they don't have, like, a good-looking older guy? How come they always have to be young?
Well, because...
Think about it.
Because
how come
Well, the older guys that they do have, they've used so many supplements and tanning and everything else. I mean, Batista looks like a piece of shoe leather. He's not going to look like George Clooney.
No, yeah, you're right. But
Cena's not aging well either, let's be honest. He doesn't have enough hair. He's not Cary Grant. Really, they don't have anybody that looks like that.
And he seems to be getting, like...
You know what? We know who could,
bigger.
but we need about 10 more years. Fandango.
Yeah.
You could give Fandango that gimmick, but it's going to be a while.
You give him, like, that scruff. You give him, like, that peppered beard.
And the gray hair.
Yeah.
You don't even need to give him the beard. You can just let him age normally. Like the Richard Gere type with a smaller head.
Right.
How do we get into this?
Look, I'm just... Because, like, even though that's an older guy, that's still, like, a new guy coming in.
Yeah, you know what we really...
Like DDP.
You know what we really haven't seen? We really haven't seen
DDP.
we haven't seen the salty older veteran.
Yeah, okay.
Like gimmick. We haven't seen like the Tanahashi Okada storyline. We really haven't seen that in WWE.
No.
It's always been about size, actually. That's a really interesting argument, actually, that you made out of really nowhere. And then George Clooney got tied into it somehow.
See, I think it'll be great if they had... I've been saying this for years. If they have, like, this tag team, you give them, like, a hockey gimmick. You have, like, this great new guy coming in. He's awesome. He does all these great moves, all these, like, cool flippies and stuff. But he's going to get, like, destroyed by, like, a lot of the guys who've been around the business.
Have I mentioned that I hate the New Day and what they've done to Kofi?
Everyone. I mean, poor Big E. But, like...
He has T-Rex arms. Him and Caitlyn should team up.
Yeah, but stuff.
I didn't really care about Big E Langston, to be honest, anyway.
Yeah, he was kind of the creeper third wheel. But, like, going back to...
No, even before, when he was IC champion, I literally didn't care. I was
really?
like, who's this really big dude with tiny arms? He scares me.
I thought he was... I think you let these guys be funny.
I don't like people that yell when they
money.
run, but they're not funny. They're horrible. Titus O'Neil was actually more likable.
I just say, like, have a little bit of their personalities coming out. But going back to my hockey gimmick, you have, like, this one great younger talent, but he's going to get destroyed because he's not seasoned enough. So what do? You put him with an older goon.
Yeah.
You know? You put him, like...
Is this like the
Sidney
plot
Crosby to Billy Guerin. Think about it almost. Oh, who was it? Gary Roberts. Sidney Crosby and Gary Roberts would be a great tag team.
Roberts retired the year before, right? They didn't play on the same line. It wasn't Crosby, Roberts, and Guerin, was it?
No, Guerin wasn't on the same...
Okay,
no,
Roberts had retired before then.
Yes.
The year before we got Guerin.
Yes. But still, Gary Roberts and Sidney Crosby, if you don't know Gary Roberts, man, look him up.
Gary Roberts, by the way, still trains a majority of the superstars in the National Hockey League. He's responsible for Steven Stamkos' fitness routine and a lot of the other ones. He keeps them in shape.
Yeah.
Phil Kessel, got to do something about him, though, a little bit. Looking a little bit doughy.
Just a little bit there.
Although that's probably just a complete lack of motor. You talk about Ovechkin being lazy. Woof, you ain't seen Phil Kessel.
No. So we got some time left before we have to wrap things up. So just sum things up. I think NXT would be a good thing. Independents aren't going to go away.
Honestly, I think they're just a way...
The good ones will stay.
They're a way just to give, to me, the indie wrestling fans something to watch. So they don't complain about the WWE product, but they still make money out of them, and they still give them a product to watch. So they appeal more to them. I think, honestly, that's their forward. That and to hoard talent.
Okay. But also... They could screw up NXT. It could be Raw Part 2. It could be Raw 2.0. Yeah, it could be just as awful. They could still turn off those fans that they want to turn back on. There's a very real possibility.
Only if they start doing too much backstage stuff and too much storyline stuff.
Yeah.
Could they do that? And I don't think the way that their medium is with as many people as they have on their roster, I think right now they're not set up to screw it up that way yet. God knows they could. SmackDown, by the way, is just unnecessary. I forget it's even on. They recycle just everything that happens on Raw. And
last time I watched SmackDown was Cena was going for his first heavyweight title against JBL. That's the last time I watched SmackDown. I just did not.
I gotta be honest. My last vivid memory of SmackDown, something involving Clay Matthews and Edge pinning someone because of Clay Matthews interfering after the Super Bowl. I don't remember what it was. I think he pinned Del Rio. I really don't remember. Or Kane.
Okay. So what do you have to say? So is there anything that you want to add on top of that?
Really, no.
No.
I'm pretty much good.
Okay, so we hit all the notes we wanted to hit. We argued. Pretty great argument.
Yeah, we really got into it for about an hour there.
Chris, is there anything you want to add on top of that? Is there nothing you want to add?
Are you Googling everyone that we talked about right now because you don't watch WWE?
Gary Roberts. Who's this Gary Roberts? Seriously, if you don't know Gary Roberts, look him up. He's the man, like, Chuck Norris trained.
He was only with Pittsburgh for such a short period of time. People forget how often he was with the Maple Leafs and everybody else, but he made such an impact.
Oh, it was so much fun.
The quintessential power forward, tough guy, veteran, defensively responsible.
Yes.
Top 6 forward at age 40.
Well, I think on that note, I think NXT will succeed.
Depends on how you define success. I'm not sold.
They will serve the purpose of finding the new John Cena. The next John Cena will come out of NXT.
Oh, no.
Just saying. Oh, no, what?
I actually prefer the old John Cena.
Oh, because you touched the computer. I was like, oh, what?
No, the screen went black.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know what to... But anyway, I'm Peck.
I'm Petrie.
And that was NXT.
Woo!